In 2002, during the time when the survival horror genre was really hitting its stride, and everyone couldn't stop talking about the big hitters like Silent Hill and Resident Evil. There was one game, however, that decided to try and take a different approach to the survival horror genre. A game forgotten by time. A game called Run Like Hell.
Too bad you picked the wrong side. Time to get back to work.
Run Like Hell, or RLH for short, was an action horror sci-fi game crafted by Digital Mayhem, who was a studio under developer and publisher Interplay Entertainment. It starred a protagonist named Captain Nick Connor. Nick is a seasoned war veteran grappling with PTSD, now serving as a pilot on the mining space station named Forseti. His fiancée Samantha also works alongside him as a scientist who is studying the creatures who reside on the planet below. Peace is shattered when a mysterious alien race invades the station, throwing it into chaos. Samantha disappears, and Connor's mission morphs into a desperate struggle to locate her, while trying to escape the station with a handful of survivors. I remember enjoying this game as a kid, and after playing the original Dead Space and the remake, the memories of RLH has crept out of my subconscious and has been living rent-free in my head ever since, especially that iconic intro in Chapter 1. So, how was the game, and how did it meet its end? Hello, my dear viewers. My name is Lazarus, and join me today as we enter the ruins of Blockbuster Videos and explore the old catacombs of dead video games. And our only goal here is to answer one question. What happened to Run Like Hell? If you wish to see more content like this, let me know down in the comments below, or consider leaving a like. With the introductions out of the way, let's get started. Run Like Hell was a third-person action horror game, developed by Digital Mayhem and published by Interplay Entertainment. It was distributed in Europe by Avalon Interactive and released for the PlayStation 2 in late 2002, followed by an Xbox release in early 2003. In Japan, Capcom released the PS2 version in 2004. The Xbox version of RLH introduced new enemy types and a new level called Hydroponics. The disc included a demo for a game called Hunter the Reckoning and a full music video of Breaking Benjamin's song Polyamorous, which featured gameplay from RLH. According to a poster on neoseeker.com, who claims to be the lead designer of RLH, Brian Freyermuth, sorry if I butchered that name, the game had a rough production process. Over its 5-year development, the project saw a revolving door of 2 executive producers, 3 lead programmers, and 2 lead artists. Initially conceptualized as Resident Evil in space, which we can see from early gameplay trailers, the game's direction was abruptly shifted from survival horror to action horror by upper management. This change led to the enemies being made weaker and more numerous. Eventually, management scrapped the project and mandated a restart of development, less than a year before its release date. Consequently, all actual programming was compressed into just 10 months, despite the game being in production for 5 years. This resulted in a well-developed story and characters, but the gameplay, however, appeared rushed and unfinished. Once the game was released, the reviewers tore this game apart, including IGN, who gave the game a whopping 4.1 out of 10. RLH was meant to be a trilogy, but after their failed launch and a few bad business decisions leading to Digital Mayhem shutting down, and Run Like Hell fell into a sea of obscurity. I'm sure at this point you're probably being reminded of another horror game that rhymes with bread taste. RLH does share some similarities to Dead Space, which was another horror game that made its first appearance in 2008. Both protagonists are looking for their significant other on a spaceship/station taken over by hostile creatures, or how in both games you play, there's some biogrowth plaguing the station or ship that's slowly changing the level's layout as the game progresses. Both have a creature called brutes. Both are set in space, I guess? Both games also drew inspiration from the Resident Evil franchise. RLH got inspired by the classic Resident Evil titles, and Dead Space got theirs from Resident Evil 4. But other than that, that's as far as similarities go. RLH focuses more on action horror, while Dead Space focused more on survival horror. Nick is more outspoken, while the original Dead Space, Isaac is a silent protagonist. You can't dismember the aliens in RLH, or be dismembered yourself. Even Nick's animation is pretty super tame compared to Isaac's gruesome death scenes. Funny enough, where Dead Space had the curb stomp, RLH had the casual kick to the shins. Despite being two totally different games, I wouldn't be surprised if Dead Space had gained some inspiration from RLH 2. Instead of going for the pre-rendered backgrounds like the classic Resident Evil games, RLH decides to go into the direction of fully 3D environments. The character models for the friendly aliens in Nick look great, but I will note the female human models can look a little off sometimes. Also, if you look closely, you can really see the demographic the developers were going for. The aliens that invade the station kind of look like discounted xenomorphs, except they have this weird evil villain goatee. I'm not complaining, but I think it is hilarious. There's also something up with the lip syncing in this game too, as some characters will talk without ever moving their lips, like they're being controlled by a puppeteer, which really shows how unfinished this game is, and it can be pretty distracting to look at.
Sorry. I probably could have handled that better.
Don't worry about it. He'll settle down. Meanwhile, I'm just gonna sit here and wait for the elevator.
So how about we drink to old battle scars and better times?
Fine by me. If you can stand Jackson Trap Ale.
Not bad.
The music will range from the classic sci-fi horror music that you might hear from the Alien movies. To hardcore rock music that you'll hear in a game like Doom. The game's soundtrack is mostly composed by, excuse me for butchering this, Enon Zur. What a name. You may have heard some of his work from Starfield, Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 76, and many more other projects. And this guy gets around. But RLH also features music from Breaking Benjamin's album, Saturate, released in August 27, 2002. The game showcases a vast of hard-hitting voice performances by Lance Henriksen, aka General Shepard from Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Kevin Michael Richardson, Thomas F. Wilson, Clancy Brown, Kate McGrew, Michael Ironside, who was recently a part of the podcast The Callisto Protocol, Helix Station, and other Hollywood hits during that time. The gameplay for Run Like Hell is really nothing to write home about. There's not even a difficulty option for the game. Instead of using fixed camera angles, the game allows you to control the camera at will. Also, RLH does not feature tank controls either. Enemies will constantly drop down from the ceiling and make a beeline towards Nick. Unlike Resident Evil, players can lock onto enemies and move while shooting, and almost all weapons provided have unlimited ammunition. Enemies are way faster than Nick, so you're always forced into unavoidable encounters about 90% of the game. Enemies will also sometimes dodge your attacks, but that becomes pointless when you can just lock onto them. This might have worked better if the game took the over-the-shoulder free aim approach, but unfortunately, Resident Evil 4 wasn't around to pioneer that style of gameplay. You can kick enemies, causing them to be stunned for a moment. It does 0 damage, but it's fun bullying these advanced alien life forms, like they owe you lunch money. As the game progresses, the damage from enemies can sometimes feel inconsistent. Sometimes they'll do barely any damage, and other times they'll just outright kill you. Rarely is there ever an in-between, especially the range enemies. There are no safe rooms or typewriters here. Once Nick dies, you are sent back to a checkpoint. As time goes on, enemies are going to adapt to your weapons and make them less effective. The only way to keep up with them is to search the station for more weapons or mod chips to upgrade your weapons. There are 3 different types of chips you can find. Burst chip. Burst chip increases the number of shots per trigger pool. Damage chip. Damage chip amplifies the weapon's damage output, but you didn't need me to tell you that. Clip. The clip chip expands the ammo capacity per magazine. There's also a good roster of weapons, even a hidden one that you have to find parts for and build as the game progresses. Rifle. Players are given the rifle at the start of the game. With the right upgrades, it can serve as a primary weapon throughout 80% of most of your playthrough. At least it did for me. I would say this is RLH's equivalent to the plasma cutter from Dead Space. The shotgun. As expected, the shotgun packs a bigger punch than a rifle. Though ammo is scarce, it gets the job done when you need to clear the room. The pulse rifle is an energy weapon that fires pulses of white energy at a steady pace. Its main limitation is the rapid depletion of its energy reserves, requiring a brief recharge once reserves are depleted. The bolt thrower is a typical rocket launcher that you can only get later in the game. It's powerful, and it is equipped with an alternative fire mode that shoots a guided rocket that can be controlled by the player. However, considering on 90% of the game you're in close quarters, it can be very tricky to use without blowing yourself up. The Sonic Stunner is arguably the game's worst weapon. It's so underwhelming that it's removed from your inventory mid-game. It emits a sonic pulse, effective only against smaller enemies. You can't upgrade a Sonic Stunner, so honestly, you're just setting yourself up for failure for using this thing. Now, the assault rifle. You don't get this bad boy until late in the game, but it is certainly one of the most powerful weapons you can have in your inventory. The primary fire is an unlimited supply of powerful bullets, and the secondary fire is a grenade launcher that does a ton of damage. The alien weapon is available at a certain point of the game. You can grab it off the bathroom floor if you're quick enough. However, it drains your health, making it not worth using in the long run. The crossbow is also crafted towards the end of the game, and it is extremely powerful. It's so powerful, in fact, that you can one-shot a brute. It only offers 4 bullets throughout the whole entire game. There's also a secret weapon you can get called the lightning gun. This weapon requires you to gather all the parts scattered throughout the game. The lightning gun does pretty good amount of damage to enemies and requires no ammo. To craft this weapon, you'll need to look in every nook and cranny of the station to find all the parts. If you're ever low on health, you can search containers for health packs. This gives you a huge health boost. Or small hypos that will give you a moderate health boost. Or players can ransack the vending machines for PIP Boy protein bars or BAWLS energy drink. Both of these items will only give you a minor health boost.
I told you to keep your lips off my balls.
All right, here.
Fun fact, BAWLS is an actual real-life drink that you yourself can still enjoy today. Created in 1996, BAWLS was known for its distinctive citrus and cream soda flavor. This drink is infused with a hefty dose of caffeine derived from the Amazonian guarana berry. It's presented in an eye-catching cobalt blue bottles and cans. The brand quickly tapped into the gaming community through sponsorships and in-game advertisements. For instance, BAWLS secured a novel product placement in a certain 2002 video game, and this game was called Run Like Hell, where the soda was integrated as a game mechanic. In return, BAWLS featured the game on their cases. Additionally, during a management change at Interplay Entertainment in 2004, BAWLS replaced the iconic Nuka-Cola in the Fallout Brotherhood of Steel, a move that sparked a huge backlash among Fallout fans. Beyond gaming, BAWLS has popped up in popular TV shows and films like The Big Bang Theory and The Hangover. BAWLS continues to be enjoyed in its original flavor and 6 others, each bottled in the brand's signature style. Alright, I think it's time for a brief history lesson as to why PIP Boy and Vault-Tec is featured here in RLH. It's because Interplay Entertainment was the original developers for the Fallout games. Interplay created Fallout 1, Fallout 2, and Fallout Brotherhood of Steel. After a string of bad business choices, Interplay fell into a mountain of debt. In order to pay off the creditors, the company started selling off the rights and IPs. Fallout being one of them. In October 2004, Interplay licensed the rights to the Fallout franchise to Bethesda Softworks under a 3-game deal, while Interplay will retain ownership of the franchise, as well as full rights to the MMO title Fallout Online. Later on, Interplay's financial situation continued to worsen. Bethesda Softworks purchased the Fallout intellectual property, or IP, in April 2007 for $5.75 million and allowed Interplay to work on Fallout Online, with a few stipulations. Interplay needed to secure $30 million in financing, began development by April 2009, and released the game within 4 years of commencement. This contract led to a lengthy legal battle between the two companies that lasted almost 3 years. In 2009, Bethesda sued Interplay for trademark infringement, multiple counts of breach of contract, and unfair competition, and later amended their lawsuit to claim Interplay was only given the rights to use the name Fallout, but not any material associated with the Fallout series. Interplay was $2.54 million in debt, and little work had been made on the game. The two companies reached an out-of-court settlement in 2012, which resulted in the cancellation of Fallout Online. Interplay gave Bethesda full rights for Fallout Online for $2 million. Interplay's rights to sell and merchandise Fallout 1, Fallout 2, and Fallout Tactics Brotherhood of Steel had expired December 31st, 2013. Bethesda later on released their own online Fallout game titled Fallout 76 in 2018. All right, history time over. Back to RLH. Just like any other survival horror game, there are puzzles in RLH. One of my favorite types of puzzles in this game are the ones that involve you trying to find a way past the brute. Your weapons aren't strong enough to kill them yet, so you have to think outside the box. But the most common and overused puzzle is the one where you need to gather bits of code scattered throughout the level to unlock a door. It can really make RLH feel uninspired, and it feels like this was just put there to pad the game's runtime. Luckily, the codes aren't random, so if you already know the codes already, you could just speedrun your way through the game. Each level in RLH is very linear. As you progress, there's no way to return to that area for the rest of the game. You will have to revisit some areas in the game again, but it will look way different from before, thanks to the fleshy growth. Rooms that were open and had loot in them are now blocked off forever. Without the inclusion of the tutorial chapter, there are a total 7 chapters in RLH. Each chapter takes about an hour to finish. So at most, it might take players about 7 to 8 hours to complete the game. There's no new game plus or bonuses after beating RLH, and you lose all of the weapons you collected throughout the game. So what's the game actually like? Well, when we start a new game, we are given 2 options. We can either start the game on chapter 1, or we can play the tutorial. If we select chapter 1, the game starts with Nick returning back to the station. He tries to communicate with the station, but no one answers. However, if we choose to play the tutorial, the game starts with Nick having a nightmare, or perhaps a premonition of things to come. Nick wakes up and tells his fiancée, Samantha, about his dream.
Another dream. You want to talk about it?
It was about the damn war again. You think I'd be able to forget about it after all these years?
It'll fade. For now, get some sleep. You have to wake up early to teach me how to shoot, remember?
Nick and Samantha get interrupted due to an attack on the station.
The station is under attack. Get dressed.
Nick seems confused because he doesn't recognize the ships attacking the station.
The supply ships arrive, but it's being attacked by fighters. I've never seen anything like them before.
Nick?
Then suddenly, Samantha gets yeeted into the back rooms.
Samantha!
And the screen fades to black. It was a dream inside of a dream. Nick doesn't comment on his dream at all, but instead gets up and goes about his day. Nick realizes he has a few unread messages. One from his fiancée, Samantha.
Anyway, I know you tend to drift when I talk about my work, so I'll keep this short. I'll meet you down at the shooting range at 0800, and no, you can't back out. I know you hate to think of me with a gun, but it's all in fun.
And one from his co-pilot, Amanda.
Well, it's official. Yaren found plutonium in asteroid belt Alpha Beta 3. He wants me to go check it out and get some core samples. Looks like we have another run to make today, Chief. I'll meet you up in Hangar Alpha at 0900.
Message ends.
Once the cutscene ends, now we are free to explore around the station. We can stock up on supplies and upgrades before things start kicking off, or contemplate on wearing your fiancé's underwear, and interact with some of the major characters we'll meet later in the game.
Bugger off! Bugger off! Bugger off! Bugger!
Like Fred, who Nick meets in the library, he's not too friendly.
Just doing my rounds, Doc. You're new here, aren't you?
Yes. Dr. Mech and I came aboard about a month ago.
Dr. Mech? The Necklock? You're actually working for one of them?
Yes, I am. Now, if you'll excuse me, Captain, I must get back to work. Dr. Mech has me on a very strict schedule.
Nice talking to you too, buddy.
We can also meet with Niles, Jesse, Dag, and the Commander. We could get some more world-building lore by talking to the NPCs around the station, and some of these people will have no clue this will be their last day on the job.
Listen, I don't care what you say. It's their fault.
Come on. You're telling me that the husk is behind the elevator going down?
Well, the bitch arrives and the elevator breaks down. I don't see coincidence here.
That's because you're paranoid. The war's over, remember?
Well, that don't mean she wouldn't get her kicks out of screwing around with us humans. Look, I fought those necklocks, and it wouldn't surprise me.
Well, there's nothing we can do about it, except wait for the menulist to fix the thing.
That's what you think. I'm gonna go have a little chat with the commander. It's bad enough he lets the scientists come waltzing in here like they own the damn place, but now he's letting them break whatever they please.
If we head into the arcade area, we could practice and play a minigame that will pop up again later. If we explore our co-pilot Amanda's room, we could get a glimpse of a supply ship coming to dock the station. And it looks awfully familiar. And it turns out, it's the same ship from Nick's stream. Now we go and meet up with Samantha. We can either hop into VR rooms and practice a few game mechanics, or we can show Samantha how her man handles a weapon.
Okay, show off. Let me try. Wow. Well, that was easy.
Yeah, wait until you fire a 2-ton nuke launcher. Then you get recoil.
The best thing about this, you could just stand here and she will still be impressed. Proceeding down the hall, Nick sees a scientist getting bullied. Unlike Samantha's shooting tutorial, this section could play in two ways. You can have Connor intervene and stop the bullying.
Now let him go. Go sleep it off.
Just because you're military doesn't mean you own the damn place. I'll remember this, spacehead.
Or you can sit back and Dag will walk over and break up the party himself, regardless if you talk to him first or not.
I don't see any other drunk-ass rock skulls around here, do you?
Oh yeah, that's... I'll remember this, skaghead!
Good. That's how I like it.
Afterwards, we finally head up to the hangar, and after Nick says a few kind words and goodbyes, we are free to explore the station one last time before starting the game. And you see this guy right here? Remember him, because this won't be the last time we see him. The tutorial concludes with Nick and Amanda preparing to leave Forsetti Station, just as a ship filled with alien creatures docks, setting the stage for the main game. Once Nick and Amanda finish mining the asteroid, they return to Forsetti and try to make contact, but no one responds.
Forsetti Station, this is Shuttle 1. Please respond.
Nick, what's wrong?
I don't know. Communication array probably went down again.
You don't sound very convincing.
Nick and Amanda land back in the hangar and discover that the station is eerily quiet. Nick goes and investigates and finds tons of evidence of foul play. Interacting with the computer will start an amazing cutscene.
Nick! Found anything?
Well, the system's still up. Hold on. What the hell happened here? Let's see what the cameras tell me. Come on, come on, come on. Amanda, you okay?
I'm fine. This can't be happening. Just get a hold of somebody.
Oh my God.
Nick? What
it!
Once the cutscene ends, the game finally lives up to its name, and we run like hell while running away from the brute. The game gives us a minigame. This is the only time this minigame will show up in this entire game. As Nick sprints away from the brute, Nick ends up getting shot by Dag in the process, but then is barely saved as Dag blows up some explosives and tries to send the brute into outer space. And Nick is pissed.
Oh, you shot me. What happened to the override chip on the gun?
It's my own personal weapon. Jackson Trep don't use those human chips in their guns.
Once Nick recovers, Dag mentions that they shouldn't stick around, but instead head over to the guard post where it's safe and hands Nick the rifle. Nick and Dag fight their way to the guard post. The door to the guard post won't open, so Nick tells Dag to guard the door while he goes to look for something to pry it open with. And it kind of makes you wonder, why not just stick together in a situation like this? We find something to pry open the door and return back to Dag. The brute from earlier bursts through the door and slowly starts heading towards Nick and Dag. They quickly try to pry open the door, and the animation here looks absolutely awful. It looks like two lumberjacks are sawing a tree together. They quickly break through the door and start heading towards the guard post. Once inside, Dag shows Nick a footage from yesterday.
This was recorded yesterday, after you left.
It looks like they landed with the automated supply ship and then somehow blocked the main elevator. No one could be evacuated. Christ, they were fast.
They herded us like Mezzy and Grassies. Took them only 8 hours. Then there was nothing left.
No one left.
Who knows? I've been hunting since last night, but the power's fluctuating all over the damn place. Managed to kill 5 of these creatures using high explosive tanks and whatever else I can get my fist on.
What about backup? Did you send an emergency buoy?
Went out last night, but it won't reach base till tomorrow.
Damn. A rescue ship will take 7 days to jump out here. Shit.
Yeah, that certainly is a good word for it.
Was Samantha one of the casualties you saw?
There were a lot of them. I don't think so, but I didn't see everything. Gotta have hope, right?
Right.
Some time passes and Dag receives a video feed from one of the scientists. And would you look at that? It's the same doctor from the library. Dag then pinpoints where the scientists are located and the duo start making their way there. Once they arrive, they meet with a huge wall of flesh blocking a corridor. Nick tells Dag to go and look for a guard post, just in case there's any more survivors trying to contact them. We now fight our way through the corridors of the station. The flesh walls are now spawn points for the enemies. And I really like the ripple effect they make when you shoot at them. I don't know why, it's just fun to look at. While running through the corridors, we come across a brute that appears to be ignoring us. If we follow him, it appears that he is guarding the door where the scientists are being held. If you try to take him head on, he'll just give you a good old slap and go about his day. Normal weapons are ineffective against brutes. This is actually a puzzle, and to solve it, all we need to do is distract the brute with a robot. Lead him into this room, and hey, would you look at that? It's the same minigame from the tutorial chapter. If we're successful, the brute will suddenly blow up. Now, we can proceed through the door that the brute was guarding. And as soon as we enter, we are immediately ambushed by a group of cutters. And the song Home by Breaking Benjamin starts blaring in the background. Once we defeat the horde, the door randomly blows up. Once we enter the door, and Nick is immediately blown up by yet another random explosion. Nick then starts to run like hell, and the door ahead starts to close on him, but he makes it just in time. But oh no! A cutter grabs his leg, and his leg gets crushed underneath the door. Nick then passes out from the pain, and a mysterious figure approaches Nick, one we've never seen before, and the screen fades to black. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 2 starts with Nick waking up inside of a pod. Nick tries to recount what just happened, and suddenly, he remembers what happened to his foot, but the doctor tells him not to worry, as she had grown a new foot just about an hour ago, here at the biolab. Nick tries to introduce himself, but the doctor mentions that she already knows who Nick is. By the way, this is the neck lock the crew was freaking out about earlier in the game. Despite saving Nick, Dr. Mech appears to hold a grudge against humans for what they did to her people during the war that Nick was involved in.
Listen, I can see that you hold some resentment toward humans.
Resentment? Is that what you humans call it? Do you think the family of those who were stationed on Belknap holds simple resentment towards you? I've read your record.
Belknap was a science station that held a chemical weapon, a weapon that could have wiped out half our continent. It was a military target.
Tell that to the grieving families they left behind.
Doctor, there's no time for this.
Please, Captain.
No, you listen. I took my orders just like you did. In wartime, you have to assess threats. And that's what I did. I know you don't want my help, and I know you sure as hell don't like it. Right now, neither do I. But you and I are soldiers, and I think it's about damn time you start acting like one.
All right, human. We become allies. For now.
I really like this scene because it gives us more information about the war that Nick was involved in. It's very interesting to see that this is the race that Nick was fighting during the war. But at the same time, why are you here helping humans if you resent them? If the humans don't trust her either, why did they station her here? Anyway, if we head into the other room, we see the same scientist that we met back at the library. This is Fred, and Fred is weird. He tells us that the aliens are weak against bright lights. And I like how if you try to talk to him again, he'll tell you he's busy, despite there not being a computer in sight. Dad calls Nick and informs him that he's made it to the guard station and that there's something that he needs to see. Before departing, Dr. Mech makes a request that he should bring her a live specimen so she can study it. Walking into the storage room, we can see a strange container that not even Nick knows what's in it. Nick then heads down the shaft to explore the lower deck. The game introduces us to a new enemy type called Scouts, and these weird head-crawling things. They use their hands for feet, and it used to freak me out when I was a kid. I hated these things, and they used to terrify me. I couldn't find an official name for them, so let's just call them crawlers. Scouts are they're like mini Scorpion Kings from The Mummy, starring Dwayne Johnson. They'll attack Nick with their stingers if they get too close to him. The crawlers will also attack Nick the same way, using their stingers too. Nick finally meets up with Dag, and Dag immediately shoots at Nick.
Dag, it's me.
We have to stop meeting like this.
At this point, I can't tell who's the biggest threat here, the creatures or Dag. Dag tells Nick that he's been looking for survivors all night, but still no luck. However, there is a hacked video feed that Dag just found. Nick cleans up the feed, and what do you know? It's Niles. Niles tells Nick and Dag he's trapped in the theater, and he needs help. The duo finally reach the theater and find a brute guarding the backstage. Now, the brute is clearly guarding the backstage where Niles is located. Normal weapons don't work on brutes, so what's stopping the brute from killing Nick and Dag here? And then break down the door where Niles is located, and then killing him, instead of him just standing here, menacingly. Anyway, Nick scares off the brute by turning on the stage lights, and the brute runs away. Nick and Dag finally come into contact with Niles. Niles tells the duo that his son Jesse is missing and requests that they go and find him. When Nick reaches the exercise room, Jesse is nowhere to be found, and the only evidence of him being there is a single note that he left behind. Now, the crew heads to Rec Beta. On the way there, they discover a scout acting suspicious. Nick then fends off the creatures and proceeds to the door, where we encounter the game's first actual boss. This boss will block our shots and spawn scouts to attack Nick. If we kill all the scouts, the super scout will make a beeline towards Nick and try to attack him. Then start the whole process over again. Once the super scout is down, Jesse and Niles share a touching reunion.
My son, I knew you would survive. Yeah, I hate to interrupt this moment, but I suggest we get the hell out of here before more of those things arrive. Certainly.
Now, the last thing we need to do is find a cutter we can freeze for Dr. Mech. Niles walks towards the alien door and baits a cutter out. The cutter then chases Nick into a freezer. Nick quickly runs back out and closes the door, locking the cutter inside. After a few moments, the cutter reveals to be frozen. Nick and the crew proceed to extract the frozen cutter until they discover that the biogrowth that they've been seeing throughout the station is actually spreading. Chapter 3 begins with Niles handing Nick a new weapon called the Sonic Stunner, and this thing absolutely sucks. Dr. Mech summons Nick to examine the cutter. It appears that the cutter somehow is able to function despite it lacking vital organs, like a brain or a heart. She also explains that the station is slowly being overtaken by a biogrowth with familiar proteins.
All right, what about that biogrowth I keep seeing? Have you even looked at the sample I gave you?
From what I can tell, it's some kind of accelerated virus. A big pulsating virus, but one just the same. One odd thing. There are proteins in its makeup. Human proteins.
What?
Don't ask me to explain it. I need to do more research before I come up with any concrete answers.
After chatting with Dr. Mech, Nick checks on Dag, and Dag shows Nick a scrambled video feed of Commander Mason, explaining that he and other men are trapped and is requesting aid from escaping the biogrowth. Dag suggests they should head to the guard post to unscramble the message. Before heading there, if we head back to the operating table, we can see Fred acting a bit weird.
Captain Connor, this creature is amazing. Human hands and head are all fused together by the same alien virus that Dr. Mech is studying. It's impossible. There are no neural pathways extending from the head to the hands at all.
Another mystery. I'm getting a bit sick and tired of them.
I know. This goes against all the xenobiology I ever learned. Even the gas creatures of Centauri have a nervous system of some sort. And you say that the scouts can make these on the fly? Amazing.
Amazing until they kill you. Remember that.
Nick and Dag exit the biolab. Then suddenly, they are caught in the middle of an ambush. Nick comments that it appears the creatures are adapting and getting stronger as time goes on. The duo head down the hall. They are then separated by an explosion, and now we'll have to find another way around. The biogrowth has completely taken over the halls of the station, even showing off human remains that are in process of being assimilated. Nick regroups with Dag, and they both enter the elevator. And the elevator lady sounds super awkward.
What deck, please?
Res Epsilon.
Funny thing is, it doesn't even sound like the same voice we heard earlier in the game.
What deck, please?
Recreation, beta deck.
The duo then reach the guard station and unscramble the message that was sent by the commander. An SOS signal suddenly comes in. Nick suggests that Dag should stay at the guard post just in case the commander tries to make contact again. Then, he'll go check out the SOS signal and save the commander. Returning to the elevator suddenly stops.
Elevator malfunction in shaft 3A.
Shit.
It's the biogrowth. Nick escapes through the top hatch of the elevator, then continue his journey onwards through the station. He then comes in contact with a creature that is far different from the ones we've seen so far, and it appears to be giving one of the cutters a back massage. You know what? I get it. I'm sure it's stressful murdering an entire station full of people. The creature runs into the next room, and if we follow behind it, we are faced with the game's second boss, called the Uber Cutter. This boss acts like the other cutters we've encountered throughout the game. It will jump up into the platforms above, cause the pods to fall on top of Nick, damaging him in the process. These pods will also spawn scouts, and you can't damage the Uber Cutter until you kill all the scouts first. It will also spit acid at Nick, and leave a pool that will linger in the arena for a short time. Once we've defeated the Uber Cutter, we now head out into the vacuum of space. While it lacks the details of being in space like Dead Space, at least the game is trying to mix up the environments and give us a nice break from the gray interiors of the station. The shields are going haywire, and one wrong move and Nick is toast. Our only safe haven are these panels that are raised just enough to avoid being fried. We get past through the section, and we make it to the advertised Xbox exclusive hydroponics level. It's filled with mutated plants that will attack you if you get too close. You can't lock onto them, and we'll have to manually aim to shoot them. And they are annoying. There's a vine blocking the exit, and the only way to get rid of it is to find herbicide and put it into the water pump. But oh no, of course things couldn't be that easy. The water pump is broken. We need to find a Vault-Tec 3000 water recycling chip. Put the chip and the herbicide into the pump, and we're done. Despite this level being available exclusively to Xbox, it felt like there was nothing special or unique about this level, other than giving us more padding. Nick approaches a computer screen in the corner of a room, and discovers his fiancée Samantha is still alive.
Anyone out there, please come in.
Samantha?
Nick? Is that... Oh, is it you?
Christ, Sam. Sam, are you okay? Where are you?
Oh, we're stuck in the main offices of Cis Beta. You have to get us out of here.
Us? Who else is there? How did you...
We don't have much time. There are about 5 other scientists here. Both guards are dead. We managed to block the main door, but I don't think it'll last long.
I'll be right down. The comm link I'm wearing is frequency 134 alpha.
Nick? It's breaking up.
Sam, I'll be there as soon as I can.
I can't hear you. Nick, please, Nick.
Damn it.
Nick races to where Sam is located, and on the way there, he sees the same creature from earlier.
I better stay out of sight. This is their turf.
Nick then gets a call from Sam. She notifies Nick that the creatures have broken through the main door and are trying to get into the room she's in. Nick tells Sam to hold on and that he's on his way there. After some time, Nick reaches the door where Sam is hiding, but there's an Uber Cutter blocking the way. This boss plays the same as the last Uber Cutter, except I will say the acid he spits out has a very wonky hitbox, making this fight kind of frustrating. Once the Uber Cutter is defeated, Nick opens the door and finds the same scout from earlier. He tries to take a shot, but he gets away. He then finds a survivor hiding under a table where we learn that his name is Craig, the same guy that was bullying Fred. Nick asks Craig what happened, and he tells Nick that the rest of the survivors were either killed or taken away by the creatures. Nick doesn't believe his story because he was just talking to Samantha just a few moments ago. Nick turns to find a ring on the floor, and it's the same engagement ring he gave to Samantha, and Chapter 3 ends. The next morning, Nick is sitting at a desk. Apparently they were just chilling in this room where there's a hole where giant creatures come from. Dr. Mech calls Nick and empathizes with him about losing Samantha. She also tells Nick that the biogrowth is indeed made up of human and other organisms from the station. And here in this cutscene, there's some weird moments with the audio here from Dr. Mech. Sometimes her voice would sound like it's coming from the call, and other times it sounds like she's right next to Nick.
Do you have any info for me?
I wouldn't bring it up, but you need to know what you're dealing with. Although it raises more questions than it answers. This is the alien biogrowth you've been seeing. I've confirmed what you've already suspected. The damn thing is slowly taking over the station, replacing everything with an alien equivalent. One thing I found is that the biogrowth has nerve endings, but no sentience. The other thing is more disturbing. Remember how I found human proteins in it? There's more. I found Jackson Trep, as well as Menulus.
What are you saying, Doc?
I have a theory.
Tell me.
I don't want to say anything until I know for sure. As I said, it's just a theory.
Tell me.
If you say so, Flyboy, but you're not going to like it. I think I know where the bodies of the dead have been taken.
No.
As I said, it's just a theory. It looks like the virus can merge with tissue, breaking it down to its basic proteins.
Doesn't matter. I'll find Samantha before that happens.
Hopefully the prophetess will watch over both of you. You'll need it. One more thing. I've gone over your report from yesterday. You need to capture one of those thin, amalgamating creatures with 4 arms. They may be some sort of leader. I know you want vengeance. Just remember that I need this amalgamator alive.
If this thing can tell me where Samantha is, I'll gift wrap it for you. Connor out.
And despite Nick and Dr. Mech never mentioning about going to the station's refinery, Craig suddenly suggests that he should join Nick, since he's the only one who knows the way there.
Hey, I heard you talking. You heading down to the refinery?
Yeah.
Hey, look, take me with you, all right? If anybody can figure out a way into Hangar Beta, it's me.
But how in the world does Nick know that he needs to go to the refinery? Dr. Mech or Craig never mentions anything about needing to head to the refinery. Perhaps this is the side effect of the game being rushed, which probably resulted in some missing lines. Anyway, Dad calls Nick and mentions that he's in the unspoken refinery and he has a stash that he's kept hidden. Nick tells Dad to meet him at the refinery's control room. Nick and Craig reach the refinery, where they then meet up with another survivor. And hey, look, it's the bugger off guy from the tutorial. And here, we actually learn he has a name.
Hey, Jim?
Craig, is that you? Damn, am I glad to see you guys. Oh, man, you wouldn't believe what's been happening around here.
And he immediately gets killed off. Nick mentions that the cutters are evolving, which is kind of funny because it still looks like the same cutters we've been fighting since the beginning of the game, while Craig mourns the loss of his friend. The camera here does this weird zoomed in panning shot, and it makes it seem like the camera guy was falling asleep or something, and it made the shot look really awkward. Nick and Craig head down to the lower levels of the refinery and run into the amalgamator. He just walks in, says no to the cutter, and walks right back where he came from.
I don't know. It called off the cutter.
What was that?
Dr. Mech called an amalgamator. Whatever it is, it's watching us. Stay alert.
Nick and Craig make it to the refinery's control room, and Dag is nowhere to be found. Dag calls Nick and tells him that he's reached his stash, but there's a brute outside
Just waiting to make me his bitch.
Nick heads down to the bottom part of the refinery and rescues Dag by strapping a bomb to a robot and then blows up the brute that was blocking the door. Nick gets in contact with Dag. He explains that they will need to capture the amalgamator. Nick suggests freezing it, since that worked on the cutter the last time. As soon as they exit the room, they are ambushed by a new enemy type called, well, let's just call them blasters. The blasters shoot exploding balls at Nick. These balls do massive damage. If Nick stands over the corpse before it dissolves, it will blow up, killing Nick instantly. Dag wakes up, and the duo head off to capture the amalgamator. We can capture it by using our freeze gun. Also, fun fact, if you kill it by accident, the game will make you feel awful for killing it. The duo put the amalgamator into a shaft where it will be transferred towards the storage deck near the biolab. Nick and Dag return to the refinery control room where they meet up with Craig. Craig asks if they will all be heading back up, but Nick tells Craig to stay here since he's the only one who knows how to work the machine. Nick and Dag start making their way up, and then suddenly they get ambushed again. Dag gets injured in the process and tells Nick to leave him. Nick says a prayer and runs like hell, while Shallow Bay by Breaking Benjamin blares in the background. I love how Dag is like, go, I'll cover you. And here he is, just laying on the job. World's worst security guard, I tell you. Anyway, Nick makes his escape. We cut back to Dag, who is fighting off a horde of scouts. In his final moments, he makes a noble sacrifice by blowing himself up.
Agent Shaw, I'm coming home. I'm coming home.
Could you imagine if he just shot Nick one last time before dying? Like, it's just like, ah, and then Nick's just like, ah, what's going on? Oh no. Just get blasted in the face. Chapter 5 starts off with Nick having a vision of his fiancée, and it appears that she is slowly being assimilated. He also has a vision of a group of soldiers being murdered by the creatures. Nick then wakes up with Jesse standing over him, possibly giving Nick the old Sinji treatment. Jesse tells Nick that his father, Niles, headed out to go look for more survivors. Nick is visibly pissed, but then calms down and asks Jesse if he's heard anything from the comm link. The conversation gets interrupted by a scream in the next room.
What the hell was that?
That's the creature you captured. The doctors are studying it.
Great. Hopefully we can get some answers out of the thing. Hopefully it was worth Dag's life.
Once the cutscene ends, it turns out Niles has taken our sonic stunner while Nick was asleep. It's funny that this happened because even the developers acknowledged how useless this weapon was. And honestly, I think it was just put in there to troll players. Dr. Mech calls Nick over to the operating table. She gives Nick some science talk, but Nick isn't interested. If we head over to the amalgamator, Fred starts spouting about how interesting these creatures are, and he thinks he could communicate with the amalgamator and come up with a peaceful solution together.
Doctor.
Captain Connor, you startled me. I've been studying it most of this morning, and I have to say it's one of the most fascinating beings.
Fascinating. Not my choice of words.
Oh, but it is, Captain. The evolution of this creature is far beyond anything I have ever seen. The way its body reacts, changes to its environment.
That evolved creature helped take my Samantha. That evolved thing would kill you as soon as look at you.
Don't take that tone with me, Captain. Just because your solution to this problem is through a gun doesn't mean that I can't find a way of making peace with our enemies.
I'm not here to make peace with them. I'm here to kill them. There'll be no mercy, Doctor. No peace. You can count on that.
Things start heating up until Jesse comes over and diffuses the situation. Suddenly, Niles returns and apologizes for his reckless behavior, but then tells Nick he was able to make it to the guard station and received a signal. It turns out that the rescue ship is here. Nick heads down to see the signal himself. Nick's relieved by the thought of finally escaping the station, but the ship's captain tells Nick that the ship can't land unless the station's defensive shields are down, which Nick finds strange because the shields should not be active. Niles calls Nick and tells him there's a hacker located in the detention center.
Captain, I overheard your conversation with Captain Krexner through the comlink. If the ship tries to dock with us, the defensive shield will destroy it.
I know. Is there any way you can break into the central computer and turn the shield off?
I've tried that, but the security codes are all active. Breaking those codes are beyond my meager skills. Don't despair yet. My son just received a distress call. According to him, it comes from someone who has the knowledge to, break the codes.
You mean a hacker?
Well, if you must call it that. A friend of my son's was last being held in the detention center of Res Epsilon. Jesse's been searching for her for days, and he's come across an SOS from there.
When leaving the guard post, Nick receives another call. It's the commander, but he's acting a bit strange.
Connor, it's damn good to see you.
Commander Mason, I didn't think you were...
That I was still alive. I'm much craftier than that. What's your status?
There's good news. A battlecruiser's on his way here.
That's splendid, Captain. My men and I are currently trying to work our way out of Central Command.
How does it look?
Not good. We're surrounded by unfriendlies. Although we found a storage area of some sort.
Storage for what?
Bodies. We think this is where people are brought when they're still alive.
Still alive? Are you sure?
Positive. We can see them from our position. We just can't get to them.
Commander, is Samantha one of them?
I don't know. I'll contact you if I find her.
Okay. I'll keep in touch. And Commander?
Yes?
Take care of her if you find her.
Oh, I will, Captain.
Heading to the detention center, we return back to the living quarters. And if we enter Nick and Samantha's room and examine the desk, Nick will pick up a disc and put it in his ear. It'll show a recording of him and Samantha at the beach. Interesting detail about the living quarters. When we visit Dag's room, his furniture is different from Nick's. The guy doesn't even have a desk, but instead a workout machine in his place. Even the screen in the kitchen shows off a desert instead of a tropical beach, possibly suggesting that Dag's home planet is more arid than Earth. Now, we examine the wall and pick up Dag's weapon called the bolt thrower. If we proceed through the halls, we find a wall of crates blocking the way. The only way of getting rid of the crates is by blowing up the explosives that's hidden behind the crates. Getting behind the crates is impossible because the way there is being blocked by the biogrowth. However, if we use the bolt thrower's alternative fire, we can shoot a guided rocket down the hall and blow up the crates. Now, the game never mentions anything about this weapon having an alternative fire. It also doesn't mention that you need to hold down the right trigger when guiding the rocket to avoid it prematurely blowing up in Nick's face. This is just something that us players have to figure out on our own. Anyway, Nick makes it to the detention center and rescues the hacker Jinx. Jinx tells Nick she's been watching him the whole time, but couldn't get a message out because the transmission only goes one way. Nick sympathizes with her and she starts breaking down crying. Or twerking? Nick and Jinx return to the guard post and they get ambushed by an Uber cutter, except this time he's a living Beyblade and will spin around the room and shoot out spikes around him, which can destroy Nick's health. The only way to avoid the spike is by getting lucky and praying to our Jesus. After we take down the Uber cutter, Nick and Jinx head to the guard post and shut down the shields.
Roger and out, boss man.
Patch me into the Hugin.
Access denied. Access denied.
I can't. Something's spamming all the signals going out.
Oh, don't tell me that. Let's hope that captain notices the shield's down. Switch to an external camera, both shuttle bays.
There it is!
Unauthorized vehicle has landed in Hangar Bay Beta.
One squad isn't going to be able to do a damn thing. Jinx, is there any way to contact the Marines in Hangar Beta?
The lines are all severed. We're getting sound and vid, but that's it.
Damn.
Yes, sir. We'll be right down. Let's go! Stay alert! Column of twos! We still don't know what's down here.
Damn it, at least pull your big guns. Jinx, the other cameras.
Answer me, damn it!
Get them out of there.
Commander, we have movement. What? Where? It's coming from right in front of us.
Cut to the other camera. Damn it! Jinx, give me the Hugin. No. The station is firing on the Hugin. The order came from CC. What the fuck is going on?
This is probably by far my second favorite scene in the whole entire game, especially this POV shot inside one of the soldiers' helmet as his one cutter is decimating his whole entire squad. You can see his eyes in the reflection of his visor, along with a minimap in the corner. I don't know, I really thought this cutscene was really cool, and I think they did a pretty good job with it. Chapter 6 starts off with Nick laying in a bed, hopeless, as he tries to process what happened yesterday. He believes that the rescue ship didn't come alone and probably has a capital warship tailing right behind it. Since the station just blew up the rescue ship, it is now considered hostile, and a capital ship will show up and destroy the whole entire station. Nick heads out and talks to Jinx. She hasn't had any luck with cracking the computer, but she shares her concerns about the amalgamator. She mentions how she could feel it watching her. And the camera here can't seem to pinpoint the amalgamator's head, but instead it just chooses to aim at his crotch. Dr. Mech calls Nick over to the operating table and tells him her findings on the creatures.
Remember when I told you that the biogrowth is a highly complex virus? Studying the amalgamator has led me to believe that it uses this virus to modify the creatures. I also think it can create them using the biogrowth, maybe from some sort of base form. Not that it helps us much. There's no way to neutralize the virus. Every time I try to make some sort of toxin, the virus adapts to it. You know what bothers me the most? These things can interface at lower levels. Arms, legs, things like that. What would happen if they could interface at a higher level?
What do you mean?
Imagine being able to interface with the brain of another creature, downloading the memories, skills, and even the personality of that creature. I have to tell you that as a scientist, this concept fascinates me. But as a sentient being, it's terrifying.
She then does this funny motion with her fingers. Dr. Mech pulls Nick aside and expresses her concerns about Fred. She tells Nick to keep an eye on Fred, and then T-poses to assert her dominance. Nick tells her to go get some rest, since she hasn't slept in 3 days. She then T-poses again and goes to sleep. If we head over and check on Fred, it appears that Fred is infatuated with the amalgamator.
Dr. Monroe.
Oh, Captain Connor. Hello.
You seem quite enamored with our guest.
It is truly a fascinating creature.
So you've said. Have you found anything new?
This is a highly intelligent species.
We already know that.
Don't underestimate these beings, Captain. If we can find a way to communicate with these creatures, there is so much we could learn.
Don't underestimate me. These things have killed everyone on this station.
Maybe they had a reason.
Don't mess with me, Doctor. Find out something useful, or you might be joining your friend inside that stasis field. Then you can learn how intelligent these creatures can be.
Niles calls Nick over. Niles explains that the controls for the barriers have been tampered with and was routed into Dr. Mech's personal computer in her room. Before they get any more answers, the power suddenly cuts off. If we head over to where the amalgamator is located, we find Fred's corpse with both of his arms ripped off. It appears the amalgamator has escaped. Dr. Mech then comes out of her room. While the door is open, the amalgamator runs inside, locking the door behind it. Niles then calls everyone to the meeting room. Niles and Jinx discovered that it was Fred who transferred the controls into Dr. Mech's office. Niles tells Nick that the security fields are going down around the lab. Nick has a hunch on what could be happening and checks the security feed in Dr. Mech's room. It turns out it's the amalgamator that's turning off the barriers, and we can only assume that while it was watching Jinx the whole time, it learned how to use the computers around the lab. The crew quickly run like hell into the storage room. Dr. Mech finally reveals what was in that weird container we saw earlier. And turns out it's a mech suit. And now she is Dr. Mech. Everyone retreats back to the guard post. Nick tells everyone that reinforcements are coming, but instead of rescuing everyone, it will come to destroy the station. Nick suggests that they should find a way to contact them and warn them to stay away from the station. Sometime later, Jinx confirms that the ship is on its way, but there's still no way to contact them. Jesse suggests using the commander's computer that's located on the command deck to send a message to the capital ship. Nick then makes his way to the command deck. On the way there, he runs into Niles. Nick tells Niles to return to the guard post, but Niles declines and suggests that Nick will need his help.
The middle of the station is taken over by biogrowth, correct? That means we'll lose contact with you. I've shown many times that my expertise can help you get past these creatures. Therefore, I'm going.
If that's how you feel, then I'm glad for the company.
The duo make it to the command deck, and Nick is suddenly attacked by the bull creature we saw in the beginning of the game. The bull will rush towards Nick and try to attack him with his tusk. It also emits these flies that home in on Nick, and they are absolutely bullshit. They are also really hard to aim at, despite having the ability to lock onto them. Nick defeats the bull and returns to the command center. While Nick and Niles try to send a message out, Commander Mason reveals himself.
Hopefully she got the message off. Now where the hell is Samantha?
Now that is the question, isn't it, my dear Captain?
Commander Mason?
The lone hero come to rescue his damsel fair. Such a romantic notion. These things you do are so foreign to us. It's quite amazing that you've lived so long. What's the matter, Captain? Does it surprise you to find me like this?
What are you?
The Menulus. That, my dear creature, is a tricky question. You see, we are the race. The only race. You are simply material for us to use.
And what about you? How do you fit in with this blasphemy?
You may call me the Elite. I have merged with this one you called Commander Mason. He is a part of me now. I know all that he knew, all that he felt. You are an interesting resource, but full of weaknesses. And while you've been lucky, you are no threat. Nothing but a bit of metal that has escaped the blacksmith. You live because there is a part of me that wishes it.
Look, you arrogant fucker, I don't have time for this shit. You tell me where Sam is or I take you down right here.
You still haven't figured it out yet. Come, Captain. Surely you've guessed it by now. I am the Elite, Captain.
Beloved.
I have many bodies, but I am one mind. Soon this creature that you knew as Samantha will be a part of me. It is for this that I let you send your message. It is for this that I let you leave. You cannot stop us. Now that Commander Mason is a part of me, I know the location of Earth. Soon this station will be operational, and I will lead all my children to the ultimate source of genetic material. Go now and tell the others of the coming unification. Soon you will know no fear, no anger, no hate. Soon you will be one with us.
Niles, not now. Not now. I'll go, but I'll be back. And I'll take your whole damn race to hell with me if I have to. You'll be seeing me again.
I hope so. Goodbye, beloved.
Oh, and Captain, I said that you can go. I never said the Menulus could.
Son of a bitch!
I never let a good resource slip through my fingers.
Niles.
Nick is devastated at the loss of Samantha. He starts to contemplate in the acts of self-deletion when suddenly Dr. Mech walks in and calls on to Nick, but Nick doesn't respond. She then tells him a story from her home planet and offers some words of encouragement. Nick then asks Dr. Mech about the name of her home planet.
I never knew the name of your home world.
Not many outside my people know of it.
What's the name mean?
Nechlak means many of the one. Janae, in turn, means home of the many.
Thanks to Dr. Mech's words of encouragement, Nick stands up and is ready to fight again. He returns to the guard station and asks Jinx on how did he get here. And it turns out that while he was knocked out, the creatures dragged his body and just left him at the front door. And Jinx suggests that Nick may have a guardian angel. So who's Nick's guardian angel? And why did the race allow Nick to survive and warn Earth about them? The answer might lie in the moment Nick discovered Samantha had been assimilated. When the race assimilates its victims, it essentially uploads all their memories and emotions, kind of like the Flood from Halo. It might be possible that during Samantha's assimilation, her emotions and memories of Nick might have influenced the race's decision. This could explain why Nick was spared to serve as a messenger to Earth, while unfortunately Niles wasn't so lucky. Jesse mourns at the loss of his father, but Nick offers his own words of encouragement.
Jesse,
I'm not leaving without my father.
listen to me. I know how you feel. I've lost people to these bastards. Amanda, Dag, and now Niles. Even. We dishonor their memories by giving up.
I can't just leave him.
You have to. By us leaving, they can live on in here. In the heart. You're the best engineer I know, next to your father. We all need each other in order to get out of here alive. It's what your father would have wanted.
You're right. My father would be so ashamed of me.
No, your father would be proud of you. Come on.
Afterwards, Nick tells the crew that it is time to leave the station. And apparently somehow Craig is still alive after that explosion in the refinery. I mean, look how violent this explosion was. How on earth did this man survive that? Anyway, Craig is waiting for them in the hangar. Nick and the crew group up and they get ready to leave the guard station. And if we take a pause for a moment and look around, we can see eyeballs on the ceiling watching us. Nick and everyone leaves the guard station and come in contact with the creatures. It appears they're not there to fight, but instead they are there to escort them to the hangar. Once everyone reaches the hangar, Nick tells everyone he's going to blow up the station's reactor. They try to blow up the reactor by hacking the terminal in the hangar, but suddenly something sends a feedback surge into the terminal, causing it to blow up. Now with no other choice, Nick decides to head down and blow up the reactor manually.
What? What's he mean?
It means he has to blow it manually.
No, you can't leave us.
No arguments. I don't plan on dying here. Not today.
Take the vents up to the storage deck above. You should be able to find your way outside the station from there.
Thank you. Your father would be proud of you.
Just get back to us in one piece.
I plan on it. If you don't hear from me in 2 hours...
I'll do what's necessary. May the prophetess be with you.
And you.
On the way to the reactor, Samantha calls Nick and expresses her disappointment in him for not choosing to leave the station and gives him a warning. But our man Nick is a man of convictions and refuses to stand down. Nick finally makes it to the reactor and Fred shows up to try and stop him, at least what's left of him. Nick starts to destroy the cooling rods and the release clamps. Once everything is destroyed and we defeat Fred, Fred and Nick share a few departing words with each other.
You cannot win.
A stubborn little bastard, aren't you? I hope it was everything you dreamed it would be, Fred. Too bad you picked the wrong side. Time to get back to work.
Nick heads into the reactor control room, where he's then met with a familiar face.
My, Captain. This is quite a predicament you find yourself in, isn't it? I do have to say, of all my recent additions, this construct is the most fascinating.
Buff Niles tells Nick that he finds their technology fascinating and that they're adapting and turning it into their own. Niles then mentions trying to merge with another race, but for unknown reasons, they could not merge with them in time. Buff Niles also shares some remorse for attempting to kill Nick.
You know, this is all fascinating, but would you get on with it? You're boring the shit out of me.
Believe me, I do not want to kill you. There is a strange feeling here. I think you would call it grief. As I said, you are a fascinating resource.
I'm glad I could oblige.
the fight with Buff Niles is on, and I think he has the best theme in the whole entire game. Anyway, Buff Niles has a wide range of attacks. He'll do a laser sweep, shoot mortars, mines that skate on the floor and home in on Nick, and lastly, homing rockets. He can also go invisible in the second phase. Also in the second phase, Polyamorous by Breaking Benjamin will start playing in the background. The dumbest thing about this fight is you can't do damage to him as soon as the fight starts because of the shield generators that constantly replenish his shields as we damage him. There are 0 indications that you will need to destroy them, and they kind of just blend in with the background. And this is just something that players would have to get lucky and figure out on their own. After defeating Buff Niles, Nick uses Buff Niles' eye to gain access to the temperature control console. While Nick is sabotaging the reactor, Buff Niles questions Nick.
Reactor temperature set to 500 degrees Celsius.
Captain, something puzzles me. Why do you still pursue this course of action? Why do you still fight the inevitable? The one you call Samantha is part of me now. I have to say that you are an interesting construct, yet you confuse me. You must know that this doesn't matter. You may destroy this carrier, but we know that you exist. We will come for you.
Reactor temperature set to 2000 degrees Celsius. Warning. Emergency protocol Alpha 3 cannot be initiated. Release clamp malfunction.
Then come, but know this. You might have their memories and their knowledge, but you don't have them. Niles, Commander Mason, even Samantha. They're all dead. So do your worst. We'll be ready for you. Oh, and one more thing. This is for Niles.
Reactor overload imminent. All personnel, please report to Hangar Alpha or Hangar Beta
time
for
to leave.
immediate evacuation.
Nick makes his escape back to the hangar using the tram system, but that plan fails when a brute runs into it and destroys it in the process. Now Nick has to walk the rest of the way on foot. I really enjoyed the soundtrack that plays here. It really gives off that hopeful and heroic vibe, and I really wish it played all the way to the final boss. Sadly, it only plays in this one section of the game until we exit into outer space, where the soundtrack is replaced by Water by Breaking Benjamin, then pure silence when we enter the storage area. Like, this is supposed to be the rising moment for Nick, right? The moment where, after countless failures and losses, he finally has the edge against the race, against these creatures. And having that soundtrack tied to this one section, it's just almost criminal. I don't know, it just makes the trip back to the hangar very underwhelming. On the way to the hangar, Nick runs into a trap set by the Amalgamator and the Super Scout that took Samantha, which leads into the game's final boss fight.
Yeah.
Thank God! I couldn't reach you on the comlink, so I patched into the computer speakers. The shuttle scans went off as soon as you entered, but someone's locked the door from remote. Jesse's on it, but it could be the Amalgamator. Cap? Cap, you there?
Jinx, you still there?
No one here.
You bastard. You're the one that took Samantha.
And the Super Scout would just roll around the arena and we could just zap him with our bug zapper. And he's dead within seconds. After the fight is done, the Amalgamator shoots Nick. Too injured to fight, Nick accepts his fate as the Amalgamator lines his sights to Nick's head. At the last second, Nick then gets saved.
That's for my father, you son of a bitch.
You sure have good timing.
Is it dead?
The two then run like hell back to the ship and finally escape the station.
Warning, reactor overload in 10 seconds.
What is that?
I don't know. That can't be right.
What's wrong?
That's impossible. Jesse, get on the side monitor, see what you make of this.
There's an influx of power at the front of Force City. It looks like
a jump gate.
That's impossible. No one's figured out how to spontaneously create a wormhole.
Tell that to them, Doctor. Because that's exactly what they're doing.
Warning. Reactor overload in 6 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Punch it!
Nick wakes up in the bed and has no clue what's happening. He looks over and sees Dr. Mech. She mentions that Nick has a message waiting for him. Nick takes a look at the message, and it turns out Samantha was able to survive the explosion by going through the wormhole that the station had created.
Hello, lover.
Sam.
By the time this message reaches you, I'll be far away, heading home. You fought well, my love. It is an honor to meet such a worthy adversary. You are sly and cunning, I'll give you that. But none of it will matter in the end. In the end, you are nothing but a piece of cloth that has rebelled against the seamstress. I know the location of Earth, my love. And soon, the rest of us will too. So enjoy this victory while you can. Because nothing will stop us when we come for you. The war, my love, is just beginning.
And that is the ending to Run Like Hell. It's very unfortunate that RLH was set up for failure during its development. It had such an interesting story and universe, and it left me wanting more. It almost reminded me of a survival horror version of Mass Effect. And you know what? I believe it succeeded as an action horror shooter, but the gameplay was just very shallow. Given another year to iron out the kinks and polish the gameplay a bit, RLH could have been a major hit for Interplay and Digital Mayhem. In an alternative universe, we might have seen a live-action adaptation, spin-offs, and possibly even a 2023 remake. But sadly, the developers missed their mark. What a waste of potential, and what a waste of potential it is. But what do you think? Does Run Like Hell deserve a second chance? And what did you think about the story? As always, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe, like, or dislike. Either way, I'm Lazarus, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.